If you ever have to go visit someone in a hospital, always go to the cafeteria. It's a lot of fun. Yes, ma'am.
What did the ankles cross for? 'Cause I'm doing it.
You are not engaging in conversation right now. You're listening, so you're probably sitting in the most comfortable manner that you can sit. So it all depends on where you are. Are you engaged in a conversation? Did everyone hear the question that her ankles are crossed right now? What does it mean? And it means that she's comfortable. It's when we are engaged that we want to look at that. So there's a difference. If you were sitting and eating and chatting, then I'd be interested that your ankles were crossed, meaning you could be hesitant to join in the conversation. Someone with their feet wrapped around the outside of the legs is generally not going to be terribly conversant. The person with their legs crossed or out in front is going to be almost the leader of the conversation, if you will, or more engaged than most. Now again, body language is not an exact science. They're learning more and more about it every single day. But these clusters of signals gives you a good head start and a good sense of who you're dealing with. So we want to learn to trust what we see, not necessarily what we hear. So that woman who's making that smile and a derogatory comment, watch her body language. The smile is not a real smile. The words in that case mean more, but her body language is going to tell you a whole story that goes along with that statement. So, for instance, if I came out here tonight and I said, hello, my name is Bev Chana, and I'm going to talk to you about body language. You'd all be looking, oh God, is it 7:30 yet? Can we go home? It's energy. It's your core. And women do not do well with their core. Stand up straight. It's amazing how much energy and how you empower yourself by walking in the room. I was interviewing a woman for a CFO job the other day. CFO, they should have it somewhat together, one would think. And by the time at the end of the interview, she had shrunk down into her chair. There was no energy, no confidence being shown. And that's who we need to be as women. Proud of who we are. And have that energy. The more we slump over, first of all, it's not flattering. We're all trying, at least I am, always to look thinner. I told the cameraman, make me thinner and younger and we can do the podcast. But now, what we want to do is always have that energy. We converse better. Our lungs and our diaphragm are open. But if we sit either crossed-armed, closed off, or round-shouldered, we're not going to be expressing any of that to our audience. And our audience can be one person, can be 100 people, it can be 1,000 people. So it's important. Energy, confidence. We all have it. I looked at every single one of you, and I have a better view than you do. You only get to look at one. Not so great, but one. And I get to look at all of you. You're wonderful, strong women. And I would bet you if I went around this room, everyone would have a talent. But if you sit there and you don't express it, no one will be interested. And that's a great reminder. Please take a 30-second and turn off your cell phones. Thanks. Words can be manipulated. Politics comes to mind, maybe? Words can be manipulated. It's much harder to manipulate our bodies. You know who's very good at doing it? People who are professional poker players. They spend fortunes when they get to a high level to not have tells. And women have more tells than men. Why? Because we're more emotionally based. We generally speak more with our hands, although we only do it from our elbows down, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We're kind of Velcroed in there. We need to remember our tells. Every meeting that we have, people are looking for tells. So when you watch these Texas Hold'em games on TV, you'll see baseball caps down below their eye level, dark glasses. Some of them hold a toy in their hand because otherwise they're going to do a tell. And I'm in the wrong business. Some of these body language experts get $1,500 an hour to go tell them how to cure it. Yeah. But they have to work at it. Like anything else, if it's not natural to us, we have to practice it, work at it, be cognizant about it. It's important. There are people who sit and they look like a third base coach, sitting at a meeting and they're doing this. Watch, now that I've told you this, you'll watch people do this all the time. They look like third base coaches. And in an interview, if they happen to be in transition, I turn around and look behind me. Are you signaling someone? I don't know. I don't know. So be aware, where are you putting your hands? What are you touching on your face? What are you doing that could be distracting or breaking that engagement that you have with someone? I keep looking over so that you can't fall asleep, right? If I'm going to make eye contact with you, you don't want to fall asleep. So I make sure I make eye contact with everyone in the room, because they'll really embarrass you if you fall asleep. We need to be engaging all the time. Whether we're doing a presentation, whether we're stating something, whether we're making dinner plans, engage the person to whom you are speaking. It's incredibly important. Body language needs to be adjusted from when we grew up. There was a Dr. Brazelton who did some wonderful testing on infants and young children. And we know that when you bring a 2 to 3 year old little boy, it's actually 2 to almost 4, it's 3.9 years, into a pediatrician's office, what will happen is that he'll climb up on the table, the examining table, tear the paper, sprawl out all over the place. 96% of them do that. No, don't do that. Don't, just lay down, lay down. They don't care. A little girl, 93 point something, and of course the brain cell died on that point, will come into that doctor's office and maybe play with the paper, maybe even draw a little on the paper. As soon as the doctor walks in, over 93% of them will immediately cross their ankles and put their hands in a fig leaf position or cross their chest. This is not learned behavior. This is innate behavior. And it was an amazing study. We are protective of our bodies. Unfortunately, it carries through to some things that are not so positive. And what that means is that when we go and speak, and if you notice I use my arms a lot, why? I'm not Italian, no. I use my arms and hands a lot to make points. But most women presenters, better than 72% of them, will only talk from the elbows down. They're Velcroed on top. It's really weird. Hi, how are you? Okay? Where a man giving a presentation is going to be big and loud and boisterous, but we're not. Okay? So we want to make use of our upper carriage. It shows that we're in charge when we're making a presentation, when we're talking to someone. It's the most important thing, that energy, that control. Now, part of this came from a natural stance, a natural origin. It came from our chairs in the office. Until the late 1960s, women's office chairs did not have arms. You learned. And when they went, for those women that made it into the executive group, they bought them leather sleek chairs, no arms. Until they finally would say, do you want a man's chair? Well, I've got arms just like a man. Can't I have something to rest them on? So there's lots to be said for where some of this comes from. It's trained. But we learn as children to display ourselves differently than with boys. It's environmental. It's a nurturing kind of feeling. And some of that is good. When we're in an office environment, we shouldn't be showing cleavage. We probably shouldn't be showing toes sometimes, depending on what the environment is. Because it actually, do you know that certain attire will affect your body language and it will affect your productivity? Proven facts. We knew that years ago when I was in school. That was way before you were born. Way before you were born. Our skirts had to be long enough because the minis came in. Now, minis in those days was an inch above your knee. We would have to get down, and I went to a public school, on our knees. And if your skirt didn't touch the floor, you got sent home because they felt it wasn't appropriate. You couldn't learn. Well, you know what? They were right in the 50s because we've learned that certain modes of dress allows us to lounge and have a change in our body language and our attitude, and we learn differently. We respond differently. A lot of companies are going back to business attire, not business casual, business attire. The millennials don't like it. That's anyone born 1980 or after. They don't like it at all. They grew up in Dockers and sandals and flip collar polo shirts.